G'day Fixers, well I hope you enjoyed last week's silly little silent movie style video, as I got pointed out a few times, about the Armor Tool Mini-Jig. Now this was sent out to me by Timbercon in good faith. They were fully aware that I am a brand ambassador for Kreg Australia and that my whole workshop is full of blue tools. And by their logic, that was perfect, because who better to give an objective point of view about a red tool than someone who doesn't genuinely use them and is obviously biased towards the Team Blue stuff. Now, I started with Kreg early on. Carbotech approached me very early in my woodworking days. I've got a local store. I obviously like blue things around the shop, so when I was sent this, we had to have a little bit of fun with it, didn't we? But I am genuinely impressed with this, and it will be getting a permanent home here in the Fixit Fingers workshop. I've even resisted the urge to paint it blue, as many of you suggested. And as other people suggested, my actual brand colour is red, as is my beautiful, lovely bike, so, you know, we can make some exceptions here. Now, I'm obviously not going to be comparing the Armor Tool Mini-Jig to the Kreg 720. They are in a completely different ballpark, and there is a full armour jig, which I've not had to play with, but I've heard is also very, very good if you are a regular pocket holer. And there are two things that I want to talk about this jig today, and that's the first one. Who is this jig for? Well, it is for the person who has not done pocket holding before, or only pocket holes on the odd occasion. If you're well into this game of liking to put angled screws into bits of wood, then the chances are you want a full-size jig. They're faster, they're more reliable, they're stronger, they will last you longer, and they're just going to make your life easier. Regardless of which model you go for, a full-size jig when you're doing many pocket hole projects is going to be superior to any of these little portable options. But they are very cheap. This and the Armor Tool jig are both several $100s, whereas in February 2023 here in Australia, this little guy will only set you back 79 kangaroo skins. So, if you're just starting out and you're not sure if you want to get into pocket holes, this is an excellent jumping off point. And there's another reason why it wouldn't be wasted money if you were to step up to one of these later. We'll get to that in just a second. So why I say it is for the occasional pocket holer, it is of course going to be slower. So if you're not doing this all the time, you can just grab this thing and you're going to save yourself a lot of money, and it will do just about everything that this thing will do. And it's small, it's compact, it's portable. It comes in a lovely little case that will house the jig, and I obviously believe you can get the other accessories and screws and things in here too. So just in a size comparison, if you only want to do this every so often, then a portable little jig like this is probably for you. So, the new pocket holer or the occasional pocket holer? If I can't compare it to that, what can I compare it to? How about this? Kind of. This is the new Kreg XL jig, and it is huge! It is absolutely massive. The drill bit that comes with this thing is a 12mm instead of a 10. It's designed for doing construction, up to 4 by 4 inches, 100 by 100. I'll have a proper look at this later, but it gets me to my second point. We're not looking at that, we are looking at portability. So, the reason that this is going to find a home permanently in my shop is that even though I own that, I no longer own the portable Kreg jig. I had the old K3, I gave that away recently when I upgraded this thing, and I don't have the 320, which is the newer version of the Kreg jig, which would be the direct competitor to this. I believe they are a similar price point, but I think this one might have a few extra cheeky features, which means I don't really have any need to now get the smaller Kreg jig. This is basically the big version of the 320, so we will take a look at these side by side. And first off, we have the clamping mechanism. So if you imagine these were going to be the same size jig, the Armor Tool comes with a magnet, and that is certainly faster. But not by much, and here's my thing. If I am doing this portable pocket holding, where you bring the tool to the workpiece instead of with the big jig, you're bringing the workpiece to the tool, then I actually like the permanent clip solution because short of absolutely belting the living snot out of it, that is not going to come off. The 320 has the similar clamping mechanism, I do believe. With this one, that wasn't on purpose. That happens a lot. You have to be very gentle. Now, you saw in my video when I built the rolling stand that I had it on my clamping bench. On these style bench clamps, just take off the rubber pad and it goes on really nicely, and it did hold it sufficiently well for those gentle controlled motions. But if you're on a big project or you're out on a building site and you're trying to do some repairs or something with this, then, well, it's got the risk of falling off. The magnet's good, but it's not sensational. So I actually prefer the Kreg style with the plastic pinch here instead of the magnet. Look, it's good, but that's just more safety for me. If that thing drops off from any height, you are probably going to damage it. Having said that, it is made from the same super tough style molded plastic that the Kreg Gear is, and you know, both of these guys cop a lot of flack from certain circles who say they're rubbish purely because of the material they're made from. In nearly 5 years of using Kreg Gear, I have never broken a piece of blue Kreg plastic. It is super strong stuff, and I'm sure the armor tool is probably very much the same, just a different color. However, because this one has moving parts, it is a little bit more fragile, and they are basically my only concerns, because what makes this thing super cool is also probably the only weakness of the system. So the big party trick of this guy over the Kreg style of jigs is the automatic functions it puts in. The new Kreg collars have, well, just a marking on the side of them, and that's great. You know, it makes you very easily be able to adjust, but you still have to do that manually. The party trick here is with the onboard Allen key, we can loosen the nut and make sure that that is movable. And then this little claw is the super clever part of this jig, because when you press the button to adjust to your timber thickness, all you need to do is make that claw fit the timber that you are using, and that collar is moving along with the thickness indicator, which means you're always going to have the correct stock collar for the correct thickness of wood, and that is super cool. Also, having that claw there means you no longer have to measure the thickness of your wood. You just shove it in, and as long as it is the right size, just like the 720, I think this goes from 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches, or 12 mil up to about 35, 36 mil, or thereabouts. That is just super cool. Really, really nifty technology. And more than that, there is a little guide down here which tells you which screws you then need to use for the same thing. So once you've set it up, simply lock down the collar, and that bit is ready to go. You've now set the correct drill height as well, which again on the Kreg jigs you have to do manually, so you have to measure your timber, then set the drill height, then set the collar. This takes away several of those steps, and that's awesome. And even better than that, with the Kreg jig you have to know which screw length to use, and one of my gripes with the 720 is it no longer comes with a sticker telling you that. This jig has it built in, and I believe the big armor tool jig does too. Looking down the side here, it just points to, I need a 2-inch screw for the piece of timber, if that was pocket holeable, that I just measured up in there. And the armor tool ones, another cool feature that they have is the color-coded screws. So yes, these only come in Imperial. Armor hasn't quite gone the whole metric thing, which is with your Kreg Gear, you can get it in Imperial or metric, you get to choose. Armor is old school only. But because of this color system, you don't really need to know exactly the millimeters, inches conversions. You just go grab the blue screws. On a slight side note, here in Australia at least, they're very difficult to get. Literally, on this project, when I was building with this, I needed 2-inch screws, and I didn't have any. I just had square drive run out. And that used to be a problem, but now our big box store, Hammer Barn / Bunnings, stock Kreg screws. Now, you can of course use Kreg screws for your armor tool jig, there's no issues there. But if you want the actual color-coded armor screws, I believe Timbercon will be your only supplier, and that's fine. but I don't have one in Sydney, the luxury of being able to pop down to the local Bunnings and in 15 minutes have the screws that I needed to continue building my project is great. So yes, the colour-coded ones are beautiful, but don't be afraid to use Kreg or Screw-It screws, pocket hole screws. Any pocket hole screws will work with this system as long as you use the correct length. Oh, the last thing I forgot to mention is the handy-dandy flip around stop, which of course, when you have correctly adjusted your height to the thickness of timber that you need, is going to turn and hook onto the bit of wood you want to drill into. That is also very nice, and if you're doing it manually, you can flip it around so it can sit flat. So I love the built-in measuring, I love the auto adjusting on the stop collar. I don't really love the magnet attachment, and I do like the system for telling you which screw to use. My concerns: moving parts. Moving parts are always a concern. This thing, basically bomb-proof. You could drop it off a building and except for maybe this little clampy bit up the top, there's not really too much, maybe the adjustment feet, that can go pop. Whereas this, if you dropped it from any real height, I'm not game to do it, you've got the screw collar mover here, you've got the claws here, and you've got this whole grey section, which does have some play in it. Now this is obviously critical, the drill guide, to the function of the device. Just like the Kreg, it has full steel inserts, and there is some good weight to this. It is not badly made, it's just the compensation for giving you that awesome functionality that you've had to introduce moving parts. And this does have some play in it, significant play actually. In no way, shape or form is that going to affect the performance of drilling your pocket holes. It just makes me wonder about the longevity of the device. There is just nothing that can go wrong with this, basically. It will last practically forever. Both of them, I believe, have a lifetime guarantee on those steel inserts. As some people pointed out in my video, and I didn't notice it while building, but I did in the playback footage, when I clamped this down, there's a significant amount of movement in here. And as there is some tiny teeth which lock and engage at the different stepped bits of wood thickness, I do worry that over time, if you were using this heavily, that could be a point of contention. They are very small. They're really, really little teeth in there. So how long will this last? Well, I think the answer is going to be, if you use it as intended occasionally and for doing those portable jobs and fixes, it will last you donkey's years. If you were going to use it every single day, then I'd probably again be looking at stepping up to a full-size jig, which is designed for that repetition over and over again usage. Obviously just speculating here, I've had this thing for a grand total of a couple of weeks and I've used it on exactly one project, but that would be my only concern is if you were to drop it, will it survive? And secondly, over time, will the clamp pressure going down on this sliding mechanism foul it up? The last thing I'll put on is dust extraction. Obviously there isn't any, so we more would call this chip clearance. I didn't really rate the chip clearance in this. On my old K3 jig, which had the block that slided into it for the Kreg Gear, the chip clearance on that was excellent. They just fell away and you could drill those holes over and over again. This one I had to clear constantly, and again, I think it's because of this sliding mechanism. You have to give it a little bit of a tap to get all the crap out of the back. It doesn't seem to want to fall out naturally while it is in use. Again, it's only meant to be used for occasional things, so that's another compromise you have to make compared to a dust extracted large system. So in conclusion, would I buy this if it wasn't given to me? Yes. Yes, I would. Even with my large jig, I had not yet found a way to replace that portable nature that I lost when I got rid of the K3, and if I was going to buy one at $80 dues, then that's just a bargain. I really think it's a solid piece of kit. Will it match my blue stuff? No. Will I use it every day? Definitely not. Will it save my ass in some future project when I forget to drill a pocket hole in something that I really should have done, like when I was building this workbench? Most definitely. Thank you again to TimCon for sending out and for being such good sports with my silly little video. Head on over to their website where of course you can pick up one of this Armour Tool jig or of course the big brother, the screws and all the other Armour accessories. No, you're not going to be seeing a lot of Team Red stuff on my channel. I do like my blues. but this guy at least will be a handy addition to the Fixit Fingers workshop. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good day.